Now we know. Okay, thank you. Let's get started then. Thank you. Bye. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on You Be the Judge. Today we are missing one of our co-hosts, Dr. Paul Dyer. He had something very urgent that he could not be with us today, but he started the recording, and so we should be fine with that. We do have Judge Claudia Barber with us, and so I'm really excited to get started into the conversation. We also have Evangelist Michelle Miner with us. It's very sad about what happened to her son, and so we are going to start the conversation tonight by talking to Evangelist Miner. And we're going to move on to talk about Derek Chauvin, and also we're going to talk about Kevin Morris, both Derek Chauvin and Kevin Morris were police officers who were convicted in Chauvin's case, convicted of killing George Floyd, and Derek Morris's case, convicted of second-degree assault on Nato Pisoa. I hope I get the name right. But anyway, we're going to be discussing all these three things. I want to give Judge Barber a chance to say hello, and then we could get started with the conversation.
Well, hello everyone. It's wonderful to be a part of this discussion and program. Happy to appear each week, and I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you so very, very much, Judge Barber, for joining us. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us. I really hope that we have an active conversation. The way we do it is people could drop in and ask questions and talk, and we try to be very respectful of each other, not cut each other off, and we have been very successful in terms of the conversations we've been having. We want to make sure that this is a place of respect, and we respect different opinions, and different opinions seem to respect ours. So Evangelist Miner, if you could, we see you. You look wonderful. You haven't started talking yet, but I'm pretty sure that we would hear you fine if you started talking. If you could tell us a little bit about what happened, who your son was, and what happened to him.
Yes. On October the 23rd, my unarmed son, Michael Ricardo Miner, who's a Washingtonian, he was staying with his ex-girlfriend, Beverly Lewis, for about 3 months. There was a domestic dispute, and a 911, prior to the 911 call being placed, he contacted me around 10:45. It was 10:45, October 22nd, 2014, and said he was en route to me. But it was late, so I guess he changed his mind, him and his dog, and he walked back. 12:45 a.m., I received a call from ex-girlfriend Beverly Lewis saying that the police had shot Michael. Officer Kendall Wade and Officer Jones arrived on the scene. The nature of the call was domestic dispute, and Michael informed Ms. Lewis that he was going in the attic to get his gun. The time the 911 call was placed, Michael wasn't there. This is when he had decided to walk from Suitland to Massachusetts Avenue Southeast.
And that's in Prince George's County?
Prince George's County, yes.
Yes.
And Officer Wade and Jones reported, and they searched the house, they searched the premise. There was no gun. Upon his arrival, his dog was allegedly, this was what was told to me. Upon their arrival, his dog was allowed to enter, but he wasn't. Again, the house had been searched.
Okay, Michael's dog was allowed to enter?
Yes. Wade commanded him to put his hands up. Michael asked, for what? There's no warrant for my arrest. I haven't committed no crime. Wade commanded him to put his hands up again. And he said, for what? I haven't committed no crime, and there is no warrant for my arrest. Wade fired his gun twice. My son fell to the ground. January of 2014.
So those were not warning shots. They were just shots.
No guns. He shot my son.
Oh, okay, without any warning.
Right.
Right. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yes. So he shot him. And Miss Lewis said, she yelled, why did you shoot him? You didn't have to shoot him. And she said, Wade called for backup. No one ever called the ambulance. She had to call the ambulance. Upon my arrival, my son was still laying there, and the ambulance hadn't so long arrived on the scene. I was told I had to go down to the detective's office. I didn't know why. I went down there. But during this time, I saw the two ambulances go by, and I saw blue light. It didn't dawn on me at the time because I was traumatized, indicating death. And they were asking me questions. And, I was answering the questions, but I still didn't know why they were asking me these questions. Okay, after that, December the 12th, 2015, Barber, NAACP, who represents PG, led us in a hands-up, don't shoot march down to the pavilion. Reverend R. Schaffner, Attorney Crump, and Pastor Jamal Bryant, they were there. And the mothers of Mike Brown, Sean Johnson, and the others. I did briefly get to speak with Sean Johnson's mother. There was Angela Austinbrook. I had retained two attorneys, civil and criminal. Mm-hmm. Greg Lattimore was the civil attorney, and Attorney Mark Howes was the criminal. Attorney Mark Howes had contacted Angela Austinbrook to schedule a meeting with her. Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I keep interrupting in the hope that other people would understand it easier. Angela Austinbrook at that time was the state's attorney for Prince George's County. That's why you were calling her.
Correct.
Okay. I'm sorry. That's why your lawyer was calling her.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So prior to deposition, Angela Austinbrook canceled our scheduled meeting. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear from Bob Ross any longer. He just dropped the ball, removed himself. I had the opportunity.
No discussion as to why, because he was still working with the NAACP in Prince George's County. Correct?
Okay, correct. But this is the rumor that was going on round then. Angela Austinbrook was going to run for the position that she now holds.
Yeah, because now she's a county executive for Prince George's County. Yes.
So during this time, this was the rumor. And Bob Ross didn't want to get involved, and Angela Austinbrook didn't want to get involved either because she knew she was going to be a candidate for the new position that she now holds. Okay, I did attend deposition. And the attorney informed me, based on the deposition, there was a lot of lies. April the 9th, 2015, Channel 4, 11 o'clock news came on. Angela Austinbrook released the 911 tape. On the 911 tape, I heard the dispatch operator speaking to Beverly Lewis. But let me back up some. First, it was said that Beverly Lewis' son called 911. And at that time, he was 16 years old. When I heard the 911 tape being released on April the 9th, Beverly Lewis called. It wasn't her son. Beverly Lewis was explaining to the dispatch operator that you don't have to come here because he's no longer here, because he was on his way to me. The dispatch operator informed Miss Lewis, we're coming out, and when we come out, we're going to shoot him.
Wow. For those of you who just joined us, we are speaking with Evangelist Michelle Miner. Evangelist Minor's son was shot by Prince George's County police officers, so she's just recounting some of the events that occurred surrounding that shooting. Wow. So there's a 911 recording saying that the police are going to come and shoot your son?
Absolutely. And last year and year before last, okay, but I had to meet with the attorneys the next day. I informed them that I watched the 11 o'clock Channel 4 news, and the 911 call was released to the public. And my question was, Angela Ostabrook is able to release the 911 tape before we go to deposition or court? And they said they didn't watch it. The attorney requested a copy of the tape. It took 4 months before they received the 911 transcript, and it was tampered with.
Wow.
That part has been removed. I didn't get the chance to go to court. Kendall Wade, who murdered my son, he attended court, and if I'm not mistaken, there was a jury, and they found Wade not guilty. My son's civil rights motion was dismissed.
Wow. Oh, my apologies. I've been told it was not the Prince George's County Police Department. It was the Prince George's County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, it was Sheriff Kendall Wade.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason
so because you were not able to make a copy of the 911 tape that said that the sheriff's office was coming to shoot your son, and the tape was tampered with, now there's no proof that that was actually said.
Okay. Now, I'm quite sure Channel 4 News had the tape.
Mm-hmm. Oh, does anyone know how we might be able to get a copy of that?
A year and a half ago, I went to the Library of Congress, and they informed me that I had to go out to PG County. Angela Austin's office would have a copy of the original tape, and the Channel 4 News would have the original 911 call.
That makes sense.
Yes, and also there's a gentleman by the name of Mr. David Grogan. He's been advocating for me. I don't know if he's on, but he said he was going to attend today.
He is.
He is.
Ma'am, I'm present.
All right, thank you. I would like for Mr. Grogan to speak.
Oh, I was just telling him that he could join the discussion. But Mr. Grogan, would you like to say anything?
Yes, ma'am. And again, I apologize for my tardiness. Just sort of add some clarity to everything Ms. Minor says. Like she mentioned, I've sort of been an advocate to sort of be a voice for her because there's a lot of confusion, political confusion, general confusion, law enforcement confusion, and that's why I wanted to be clear. I realize that most people don't necessarily understand all the different law enforcement agencies. So you have a police department and you have a sheriff's department. Kendall Wade was a rookie deputy sheriff. And some 4 years later, after shooting Miss Minor's son, he actually ran for sheriff.
Oh.
But he ran with the idea that he would say deputy sheriff, and the average most civilians would think that he was number 2 in the sheriff's department. When deputy sheriff, everybody's a deputy sheriff. You got one elected sheriff. Everyone else is deputy sheriff. Mm-hmm. At the time he ran for office, he was somewhere between 27 or 28 years old.
Wow. Quite young for that job.
Yeah, well, it gets even better.
Well, I mean, quite young to run for sheriff, because that means that at most he could have been a sheriff for, 7 or so years?
Not even that long.
Not even when he was 20? Yeah, that's what, yeah.
And in our line of work, I'm actually retired U.S. Marshal, retired 2013. That's been 25 years with the Department of Justice.
Wow.
And so I actually ran for sheriff in that same race.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was able to do is help the public understand exactly who and what Kendall Wade was. Kendall Wade is not a law enforcement officer. Kendall Wade has never attended a certified law enforcement or police academy. Kendall Wade is a political operative. Kendall Wade was actually the campaign field director for the actual sheriff. So I guess they came up with this idea to plant him in the sheriff's department to so-called run against his boss and then create this whole thing. We got a young person running against his own boss when in fact his only job was to save his boss by grabbing as many votes as he could. And he was able to garner, I think, nearly 20,000 votes. Miss Minor's son was Kendall Wade's third misfiring of his weapon.
Wow.
The third. The second time he misfired his weapon, it is alleged that he came to an eviction. An eviction is a civil process, if those of you all who understand. Eviction is not like going warrants. It's a whole different thing. It's a civil process, it's not a criminal process. Miss Minor introduced me to another advocate of hers, who is the wife of a deputy sheriff who was at an eviction with a young lady. They knock on the door, the young lady and the guy knock on the door, again, civil, no guns drawn or anything like that on evictions. The occupant, the tenant, opens the door and he's holding his keys. Kendall Wade comes out of nowhere, allegedly, yells gun, and sprays everybody.
Wow.
With some kind of machine gun, AR-15, sound like a war weapon, which would never be on the scene of a civil process. The young lady ran, jumped off the ledge, broke her hip. The young man ran, all running from supposed friendly fire. Both of them out on permanent disability, PTSD, and everything else that's associated with that.
It's amazing that they survived. I mean, wow.
Yes. But he should have been stopped then. And this is that eviction, these are all things that made the media.
But it should have been stopped with the first misfiring, because if you're a sheriff and you don't know how to control your weapon, as someone who is retired from the U.S. Marshal Service, you know that, you have to be qualified on your weapon, every year?
Absolutely. Because different agencies are different, but with federal, we qualify at least four or five times a year. But I can tell you, I have arrested some of the most dangerous people on this planet. I have never in 25 years fired a weapon at anyone. But Kendall Wade, like I mentioned, just to back up a little bit, as I started doing some digging to find out who he is, I found out that Kendall Wade attended some kind of certification police class in Anne Arundel County. And somehow that qualified him to become a police officer in a municipal somewhere here in Prince George's County. So now he's a municipal police officer. He transfers into the sheriff's department, having never been to any kind of law enforcement training academy.
I've heard of civilians who join the police force and are given certain privileges. I've never heard of an actual deputy sheriff who has never been to the police academy or anything else. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was possible.
I don't think most people knew that was possible.
Wow.
But I think the whole strategy, again, was to save the current sheriff by running for office. And he ran because that's his background is actually, believe it or not, he's better mortuary science. His family has a mortuary science business. That's his background out of DC. That's where he comes from, a mortuary science background. So it's just odd that he's always been a political person through DC, then he somehow came to Maryland. I still have not been able to figure out why he is so well protected, because he's politically well protected. So unless some real serious advocacy groups like the Caucus of African American Leaders come to Miss Minor's rescue, Kendall Wade is very much protected. And I haven't been able to figure out who, what, and why, other than his role to save the sheriff to get reelected. The sheriff is nearly 80 years old to get reelected.
Oh, so was criminal charges ever brought against him?
No.
So I guess now there's a new state's attorney in Prince George's County. It's no longer Angela Alston. Have you approached the new state's attorney, Aisha Wayboy?
Letters has been sent to Aisha Brace Or a boy.
Yes, and what's his Hogan?
Harry Hogan, Governor Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
And no one has responded to the letters.
Wow, so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, in fact, he's gearing up from what I'm told. He's actually gearing up to run for delegate in my home district of District 27, that is, 26. That's his next move coming up in 2022. Again, he was well supported by the Maryland political establishment, all the way up to Doug Gansler. Doug Gansler endorsed him, and a lot of the political players publicly endorsed him. Of course, Ms. Meyer
Endorsed him when he was running for deputy sheriff, as you say?
Running for sheriff.
Uh-huh.
At 27 years old, with probably 2 to 3 years of experience, 3 misfired weapons, killing an unarmed young man in the county. He had a lot of significant endorsements, which helped him get the amount of votes that he needed. Because I'm sure he didn't think he had a chance of winning, but his ultimate goal is, in these political races, people are planning it just to grab votes to help whoever they're trying to help, and he was from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that actually took place in 2018 when there was one seat that was open for a judge on the circuit court. There were about 7 vying for one seat, and a lot of those were planted in there to throw the numbers off.
Yeah,
and to push the person through.
Yeah, that's unfortunately a sort of standard practice that's been going on for years, but people are starting to become a lot more conscious now. And as we start sharing this information, because the only way to deal with this stuff is to try to educate people and share as much as possible, because the average person has no idea. Yeah,
that's true, and that's why we're doing this, so we could educate people and answer the questions that they may have that they don't know, who would be able to answer it for them, which gives me the chance to ask people. If you have any questions, let me know, and you could even unmute yourself and ask your question of either Evangelist Minor or what are you, Officer Colgan?
Marshall
Colgan. Sorry.
That's fine.
I have a question.
He has a question. Go ahead, Kathy.
Was it the other officer that was on the scene that went to trial and was acquitted?
In which case?
On the evangelist case, on Michelle Carter's case. I thought she said I thought she said someone went to trial and was acquitted.
Officer Jones and Tyndale Sheriff Wade came out to the house on Houston Street.
Uh-huh.
And it was 2 officers there.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Evangelist Minor, go ahead. I think, Kathy, what you're referring to is what we're going to discuss next in reference to Officer Kevin Morris. We're going to discuss that next. We're just talking with.
Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. I thought she said that one of the officers went to trial and he was found innocent.
Yes, Officer Sheriff Wade.
Oh, so someone was tried.
No. He was never. He never got that far. He never got
a trial board. Was that a trial board?
No. He never. It never even got off the ground. They what do they call it? Summary
judgment.
Summary judgment.
Yeah, and so I know Angela, State Attorney, also broke her position is that if you ask why she didn't prosecute, she will say that it was dismissed in summary judgment. And so,
but wait a minute, that sounds like a civil case.
Yeah, because there was 2. Yeah, the civil. I'm trying to remember myself. Yeah, there was a civil case that was dismissed in summary judgment. The criminal case, Ms. Minor may have to refresh my memory. What happened with the criminal charges? I know they went for indictment, but they didn't get the indictment. Here, let me just share this with you all, just for food for thought. In the criminal case, the judge ruled that because Kendall Wade thought he had a weapon, he was justified for using deadly force. The problem, as you know, Judge Barber, is that is now case law. So anyone who now shoots an unarmed black man in the state of Maryland can always reference that case that the judge said as long as the officer thought he had a weapon, he can use deadly force. That's the reason why I said we have to do something to get that thrown out. Otherwise, we're in trouble here in Maryland.
So does that apply if a person has absolutely nothing in their hands and the officer can say, "Oh, I thought he had a gun"?
Based on that ruling, the ruling with Kendall Wade, now it would, because whenever there's a ruling, now it's case law, and Judge Barber can probably explain that more. But that's a decision by a judge that now any other officer who shoots an unarmed person a lawyer can refer to that and say that the judge said.
That's why the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights was so problematic, because not only, if the officer thought that someone had a weapon or something like that, or he thought that his life was in danger, no matter how unlikely that was, that's what would happen. And with the way that the law enforcement LEOBR, the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights, the way it was, it also gave that officer 10 days to come up with a reason. 10 days of talking with his lawyer, 10 days of doing all kinds of things to try to get a story to fit whatever actual evidence there was.
These are all, in my opinion, systemic problems in the judiciary, in the judicial system, from the fact that you have decisions that are made by judges that might be pro-police, or they might be, for example, let's say, in the case of someone who shoots at an unarmed suspect, typically, if there is a published opinion, that has precedential value. Just like Brown versus Board of Education, Plessy versus Ferguson, those are published opinions, and lawyers can rely on those published opinions when they write their briefs to convince the court that the court should rule a certain way because of established precedent. So that's what that means. But we have to look at the system and watch who is making these decisions and who these people are that are being put in these positions, and what we can do about it to make sure that the right people who are fair-minded, that are going to look at cases on a fair basis, are put in positions, and so that voters in particular are well educated on what they're voting for and who they're voting for. Because we don't know if somebody is Clarence Thomas and they're running around, in a different vein, attending a lot of Democratic functions, trying to persuade voters there that they're the right person for the job. And I'm not saying even Democrats are all that right for the job. What I am saying is that we have to examine and look at all of these little mini steps where oftentimes the case goes against us. We now have right now in the Derek Chauvin case a motion for a brand new trial. Let's start all over again. I want to start from ground zero. I want a brand new jury. I want my rights have been violated. All of that is currently underway. And the question is the system being undermined, or is, will the judge give a lot of whatever is in those motions great weight? Because these are the critical decisions that judges make on a daily basis. So as we advance in discussion about the Morris case, we're running up against the same issue. The judges' weight and their leanings, and you have ideologue judges that are just all about ideology, and if they have a mentality that police officers should never be convicted of anything, then that's an uphill battle to try to go up against that something that's systemic. That's a problem because the system is also designed to protect judges from making bad sentencing decisions and bad rulings and bad, decisions that might essentially allow people to get away with murder. So all of that, the way the system is designed now, it often protects judges, and that's the reason why we should be very, very careful and conscientious about how we choose and elect judges. It is so critically important, especially here in the state of Maryland.
Absolutely. Agree 100%.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. How can, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to tell you, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. How can we get these questionable laws removed or amended? And we?
Well, oftentimes, like I say, mentioned maybe on prior occasions, if everybody is concerned about what kind of judge is hearing Derek Chauvin's case, it's too late. He's in the chair. He's already there making the decisions. And, but the time to fight against this is sometimes in the legislature, but definitely examine and look over the candidates that are running for office, because a lot of times they don't really show their true selves until after the election. Okay. And you have to be mindful of things, just as David Grogan shared with you all. You have candidates running, and then other candidates running to throw the votes off so that another candidate can get through. They're called stooges. But that happens all over the country. Stooges run just to throw the other votes off so that the candidate that should win, the good candidate, can lose.
Well,
I have something to say if I may.
Oh, okay, Mitham, go ahead.
Okay, actually, thank you very much for sharing the details.
Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for hosting, actually. Thank you very much.
Before you start, since you talked about the videos, has everyone here seen the videos, or do you want me to?
No, I'm missing. I was not able to download WhatsApp. I had complications doing that, so I haven't. No.
Mitham, is it okay for me to share screen so we could look at a couple of seconds of one video, so that way we could all be on the same page? And then after that, you could make your comments. So.
If I may request to do that on recorded base, because I don't want, because I'm going to have a lawsuit against Montgomery County, so I don't want they going on internet to see my defense, what I'm trying to. I'm just saying if it can be stopped for a few minutes for recording. That's all I'm saying, if it is possible.
Oh, okay. That's whatever you want to share with us. It's fine because it's recorded.
No, I am happy to share. But only thing is that if we can pause the recording for this period, so that when it's posted online, the county attorney cannot go and see what I'm going to do in the case. Just making.
Well, we don't have the ability to do that right now. But if you want, we could go ahead and do it at another time. Maybe you could start, or we could figure out some time to do it, because I know that there are a couple of us who have seen the recording that you have of that. But right now we're talking about Marylin versus Kevin Morris.
Yes, I actually wanted to say about that. I wanted to say something.
Can I explain it first, and then after that we could watch the video, and then after that you could comment?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Everyone, we are talking about Marylin versus Kevin Morris. Kevin Morris is a Montgomery County police officer who was found guilty of assault by a jury. So this is one of the rare cases where a police officer was actually tried and he was actually convicted. Yet a Montgomery County judge, just like Judge Barber was talking about the importance of judges. So even though this person was tried and convicted, Montgomery County judge decided that, you know what, the judge is basically going to clear the conviction of that police officer, which means that he is now able to go back to his job and become a police officer again. And I just want to show a couple of seconds of the video of what he actually did. And so that way, since we each would then have a chance to look at the video, then Mitham, you could comment, and whoever else wants to comment, to comment. So, yeah.
For those of you watching and listening to the podcast, we're having trouble showing the video.
You can't hear the video.
And getting volume. So we'll be right with you.
So let me see if I could go back a little bit. Oh, let me see if I could put the volume up higher.
And I'm unable to see the video.
You're unable to see it, even though can everybody else see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
So let me go back a little bit, and with the volume up, maybe you could then hear it, Judge Barber? Okay.
It's the video that says officer cleared of assault.
We're still not able to hear.
I can't hear it either.
Okay, well, look at the video itself, because it's more...
Yeah, so if you get a chance, you find the video where the police officer was cleared of the assault, and you watch the video of the police officer slamming his knee on the person's back, high
So
neck.
you guys might not have been able to hear it, but were you able to see the video of what he did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because the video itself has very low sound, and it was the reporters who were talking about how he was convicted, and even though he was convicted, he was then cleared. Well, he was given probation before judgment, which cleared his conviction, which means that he then goes back to his job as a police officer. And Mitham, I thank you very much for your patience. Now that everybody has seen the video and know what we're talking about, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Marylin. And I just wanted to say one thing, what I know, this kind of police, any case against police, civil case, because criminal case, we cannot do that. State Attorney's Office has to do that. And first of all, they are very reluctant to even prosecute police officers, even though they have evidence. I have personal experience of that, number one.
Yes, that's true.
Number two, what you can do is that in civil matter, if the people who are going through this kind of traumatic experience have been victim of this assault by the police illegally, always better to do it in the U.S. Federal District Court. It takes longer, but hopefully much better outcome can come. At least judges may not be so favorable to police. Hopefully not. And another thing I have seen, whenever you're taking a case in federal case, they have a cover sheet. In that, you can refer to the similar cases. You have to do some studies of those cases, some police shooting or police assault, and you can see which judges, how they did some ruling. So that is one, I don't know if it is possible, but I'm not going to recommend here because I'm not an attorney, but they have an option to refer those cases that happen in that court, and it's up to the clerk to see if they can assign to the same judges if they have similar cases. So that way, at least you know that these judges are like being fair That's what I have seen some places. I may not recommend that. I'm not an attorney, but I'm just sharing that, number one. Number two is that, see, this problem is what's happening is we don't follow through this kind of cases. Like, for example, whenever there is a shooting, the news channel comes. But where if there is a simple assault, people don't take it so seriously. Okay, I have at least spoken to several attorneys and they say, yeah, you have been assaulted, we can see that, but you were not hospitalized. It was not that bad. You know, that is the problem in the system. Assault is an assault, okay? Because that gives these police officers a rain shake to do that again and again. Because if they can slap somebody or kick somebody and get away with that, next time they're going to be more little. Then they're going to say, oh, you know what, I forgot. I was thinking I was taking the taser gun, but I shoot him. Mm-hmm. And that exactly happened. Because they got so many free passes. And all these cases has to be brought. And even state attorney's office doesn't want to prosecute me. You need to say, it's your job to do it, or else change the state attorney.
Well, you know, you raise a lot of excellent points, Mitham, and when it comes to discretion and who is using the discretion, who has the power to bring a case, not bring a case, you know, put the case in the pathway of indictment, not put it in there. All of those are discretionary calls. And that's why it is critically important to have the right people in office. Now, in the case of police chiefs who allow these people to stay on the force, now, again, let's go back to the voters. The voters are the ones that elect mayors. They are the ones and the mayors are the ones that decide who's the police chief, and to keep the police chief and not to keep the police chief. And to that extent, again, it's in the voters' hands. So, you know, if you believe that there is a lack of transparency and you've got to raise the consciousness of the voters and organize and make sure that is an issue that you bring up at forums when these elected officials come through there talking about what they're going to do and what they're not going to do and how they're going to improve things. And that's our golden opportunity to hold their feet to the fire. Because, you know, we've had situations where we're not going to endorse candidates if, you know, if you're going to put people in office that are part of law enforcement and they're going to treat, you know, Black and brown communities poorly. And there's a different set of policing that you do there as opposed to where you do in other neighborhoods. So a lot of these things happen, but we have the opportunity to raise a consciousness in the community and be vocal about policies that are putting in place and be vocal about systemic problems such that they change. Because if nobody mobilized, then we would still be in Jim Crow era. I mean, we'd still be looking at color only and white entrances and all that. Somebody stood up. Somebody marched. Somebody, you know, galvanized the community, went to jail. Somebody got beaten in the head and all that, just so we could raise the consciousness and change policies, change laws, eradicate Jim Crowism in the Deep South, and to, you know, make our lives better. I mean, we could still be sitting in slavery today, you know, because that system has not wanted to change. And so, you know, it's all about who's on top and not threatening their rights on top, whoever is on top. And it's their power system that is in control. It's their power system that decided to vacate this police officer from this conviction and allow him to be able to return to the force. So, it is these critical things that happen that, again, should strike our consciousness. It should allow us to be more attuned to who we're voting for. And even when they get in office, we still have to, have meetings with elected officials and say, hey, wait a minute, this police reform bill is not strict enough. And you got to watch. And again, voters, again, when it comes to trial court judges, we have an open system where we can choose our trial judges. And so, I raise that point because if all the police reform legislation that passed through an overriding of a veto goes to a court system, you're going to be looking at a judge. And you're going to be looking at what that judge does to that piece of legislation. Do they shoot it down, say that it's unconstitutional? Do they sit there and say, well, it's vague because we don't know what reasonable force is? So it's all, you even have pushback now from police unions on the police reform measures. But we've got to watch that, and we've got to be able to, again, put people on the bench that are fair-minded. Put people on the bench that are not ideologues. Put people on the bench that are willing to evaluate cases and not consider one witness less credible than the other because of the color of their skin. Which is, what you also saw in that movie, Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson.
Yeah, I think the whole system needs to be overhauled. And one of the things that we talk about is one of the things that we did when I was the legal redress attorney for the NAACP Montgomery County chapter is we would actually interview the candidates for judge. And so they would come to us even before they went in front of the commission, and we would give our recommendation to the commission. So we started off really early. You have to start really early because I think by the time their name is on the ballot, sometimes it's a little bit too late because the voters are confused. The reason why we have a program like this is because we want to educate people and empower them. We educate you by saying this is what's going on. We empower you by saying, hey, you have a right to ask these people questions. You and a bunch of your friends to get together and say, hey, you're a candidate for county executive. You are going to be the one who appoints the chief of police, who then is going to decide, which police officer stays on the force. We want to interview you to see what your position is on this matter that's just so very important to us. We want to interview you because you have applied to become a judge. We want to know what kind of a candidate you are. We want to know what your background is. And we want to tell the commission who we recommend and who we don't recommend. And push the person we recommend, push the people we support, and the people we don't support. We let our friends and neighbors know we don't support this person and this is the reason why. So we have to start at the very, very beginning. And it's not a heavy lift when you start at the very beginning because you get to know those subjects that are so important to you that it's really easy to then tell other people why you support this person and not that person. I find it so very, very unfortunate that the deputy who shot Evangelist Minor's son Michael was not stopped from being on the force. If a group of concerned citizens had spoken to the sheriff's office and say, hey, this guy sprayed two people and devastated their life basically because he was serving an eviction notice, we don't want him on the force. In which case, with the second misfiring, he would not have had a chance to get a third misfiring, and maybe Evangelist Minor's son would still be with us doing wonderful things, as opposed to being in the position that he is now. So we have to be very, very concerned about who these people are, what their positions are, and some people are just too nervous to carry
Well,
a
some
weapon.
people also don't take it to the next level. We need to go further than this. We should watch these administrations and how they put their administration together. Yeah. They should be open to diversity on their appointed staff as well as their general staff. If you have situations where people are afraid to speak up against injustices on the job, then you just have a stymied system. You have a system where people are living in misery because they feel intimidated. They don't want to speak up about the fact that they were passed over for a promotion 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. But there should be somebody open. When you elect people, you ask them questions about, what does your staff look like in terms of diversity and retention? Are you keeping people, or are you causing people to run away or walk away? And, what are you doing to inspire people to work for your force, to make it a very inclusive force, workforce, as opposed to one where you just have people running the plantation? I'll just straight up say it like that.
Okay.
Evangelist Minor, it seems like you've been trying to say something.
Yes. First, I would like to say, no, he should not have remained on the force. And as Angela Alsobrook, as the state attorney during that time, I'm quite sure she knows the background of the sheriff deputy. And it appears to me that Angela Alsobrook was covering for Sheriff Kendall Wade. And I heard Jim Crow name mentioned in The Color of Skin. The criminal attorney I retained in 2014, he informed me that when my question was, why is my son name not publicized with Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin's? And he said, Miss Minor, I'm going to be frank with you. Society doesn't give a damn when black cops murder unarmed blacks.
That's true. Many times they try to make it sound like a color thing, but they say, based on the research that's been done, that black police officers tend to be harder on black people than white police officers are, but they want to make it a black and white thing. And,
yes.
And the way I see it, I don't care who's doing the shooting. I'm a former military police officer, so there's some shootings that are justified, there's some that are not, and the difference is, making sure that the ones who are not justified, the people who do them are held accountable. And I think that's why I talk about this so much, because if it's not justified, we should not be supporting the people and giving them a badge and giving them a weapon so that they can go out there and continue doing the kinds of things that they've been doing. Because it's a public safety issue. This time it might be somebody, that society doesn't think, is worthwhile, but then who knows? Next time it might be somebody which I don't agree with, because I think, life is life, and, we shouldn't determine who gets to live and who gets to die. But, I also think that it's also very important that we make sure that with this very, very difficult job, that we have people who are capable of doing it without putting the public safety at risk.
And I would like to know, wasn't my son's murder publicized? His murder didn't receive much publicity at all. And he was unarmed. There was no gun on him, no weapons in the house, no on the premises. He was unarmed. Why is it that his name is not publicized with Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, and George Floyd, and others?
Yeah, and they're just, that's also something else. We know those names, but there are just so many more that we don't know. I mean, so many more that we don't know. Right. And that's why we need to talk about the ones that we don't know about, and keep mentioning them, and hope that things, well, not hope that things would change, but educate ourselves, empower ourselves so that we could make the changes that we need to make to protect ourselves and the rest of the public.
What is the statutation as far as appealing a case, and am I able to appeal his case?
Well, your lawyer knows the answer as to the time clock as to, but you start from the date that the decision was rendered or issued, that specific date. If it was a written decision, then the date that's identified in that court order or judgment. And the statute of limitations, usually if you're going to appeal, it's usually 30 days, but you also have a time period for filing a motion for reconsideration. So your lawyer is the one that can compute the time to give you information on whether or not an appeal is timely. But typically it is 30 days.
Really? He removed himself.
So that means that you have the option of choosing another attorney.
Okay, did you say is this happened in 2014?
So that means that it probably is past the appeal period.
Really?
Yeah, but there's since Officer Wade
Yes.
was never tried. Maybe you could, because I think you're well within the statute of limitations for that. And well, not well within. The statute of limitations is probably close by. So you might want to look into that and push the current state's attorney to see if he could be tried. Since I still think, well, I guess it depends on when. 2014. Okay, I still think that's something that you could be looked at. But in terms of the first officer, because it was never an appeal, I think that case is gone. But then, yeah, civil action, the statute of limitations would pass too. Sorry about that. But there was a comment in the chat that asked, that stated that what you're doing now to keep your son's name alive and what happened to him is very helpful, because, the world might not know his name now, but you're continuing to speak to groups like us and spreading the word about what happened to him, and you seeking justice for him. That is keeping, his name alive and his spirit alive. And that's what the comment said.
I didn't hear what you said as far as Wade. So you said that the statute of limitation has expired?
Well, I think you need to speak to the state's attorney to see whether they're still within the statute of limitations to try him for what he did to your son. Right now, there's a new state's attorney in Prince George's County, and Aisha Wade for it. Yeah. So, and I know that you said you've written to her before, and there has been no response, but the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so, so sometimes you have to make it so you can't be ignored. And or make it, there's a comment as well that there's no statute of limitations for murder. So therefore, you want to make sure that you become the squeaky oil to then make sure that you that you get justice for your son. And it's really easy. Oh, somebody is also asking, is the Prince George's County ACLU involved, the American Civil Liberties Union? Have you contacted them, the American Civil Liberties Union and Prince George's County?
I've contacted ACLU.
Okay. And no response from them either?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I know that Judge Barber has to leave because she has another commitment, so she left us. Sorry about that. And Evangelist Minor has already contacted the NAACP in Prince George's County. Someone is asking, have you also contacted the NAACP Legal Defense Fund?
Yeah, well, we have just FYI, we have a new president. I'm not sure if Ms. Mott, if you knew that, but we have a new president with the NAACP Prince George's chapter, Linda Thornton Thomas. I think Linda Thornton Thomas is probably going to be a lot more progressive and aggressive. So that's an avenue, at least, to talk to her, because she's very familiar with Bob Ross, former president. And I think that I didn't think about that, Ms. Minor, but why don't I help you get a meeting with Ms. Thomas and see what her take is?
Okay.
I'm actually I'm the vice chair of the legal regress committee.
Oh, very good. What county? Prince George's County?
Prince George's County, yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow. Very good, very good. And I'm here. You guys have my contact information or have a way of contacting me. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. We have other lawyers on, who actually listen to us. So if somebody wants to give advice or wants to be involved in seeking justice for Michael, we would be very happy to have you join us. Can I ask you one?
Thank you for listening to You Be the Judge. We're here every Wednesday, and we'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. You can always inbox me at drpaulwdyer@gmail.com, or just listen to the show here. You can listen to it. You can see it live at YouTube with Dr. Paul Dyer. You guys have a great day. Catch you next Wednesday at 6 p.m.